Speaking today on the topic of hope, I want to start today's talk or message or whatever you want to call it by reading the Daodejing. And this is in verse 13. There's 81 verses to the Daodejing, and it was written by Lao Tzu, and this translation is by Stephen Mitchell. Success is as dangerous as failure. Hope is as hollow as fear. What does it mean that success is as dangerous as failure? Whether you go up the ladder or down it, your position is shaky. When you stand with your 2 feet on the ground, you will always keep your balance. What does it mean that hope is as hollow as fear? Hope and fear are both phantoms that arise from thinking of the self. When we don't see the self as self, what do we have to fear? See the world as yourself. Have faith in the way things are. Love the world as yourself. Then you can care for all things. That's one of my favorite verses of the Tao, and it speaks so much about something that we can encounter when we are working in the tidy mind. And maybe we get to a place where we've calmed ourselves. Something has happened and it's brought up a lot of fear, a lot of shaky floor is happening, a lot of emotional upset, and we find a way to calm ourselves from a fear. And usually what we use is a hope of a certain outcome or a hope of a certain resolution. These hopes are conditional and exist inside the mind. The world of the mind is a world of conditions, meaning this has to happen for me to feel good, or if this happens, I won't feel good. So our emotional state of being is depending on a condition when we're living in our mind. And one of the things that we do is our mind will grab a hope, and this verse says that both fear and hope they're in shaky ground. They're not on stable ground out there in the heart. It's up and down. It's whether you go up or you go down, your position is still shaky. You are still going to have shaky floor depending on a condition or an outcome. So one of the things that a coping mechanism when you live in the world of the mind is if you're having an intense fear of some sort, your mind will grab hold. It loves to attach. It's an attaching type of thing. It attaches to things. It clings on to things for dear life. It always needs a certain outcome for happiness. And it'll attach to a hope in a certain outcome. Okay, well, maybe this will save me. Well, I could worry about it, but you know what? This is coming up, so I'm just not going to worry about it until then because it could all change. That's a hope. My daddy used to say, I would get really, really excited about something in the future, and he would say, don't get your hopes up. And when I got older, I used to think that's just the absolute worst thing you could say to a child, because it brings in, it's better than being in fear. It's better than being negative. That was how my mind perceived it. It's better than this. But when we really look at it, it's not a stable place either, because if that falls through, then where are we? If we fall from that ladder, we're just as hurt and devastated as we are as if we were in fear and in constant worry. Now, what hope does is it gives a brief rest. So it's kind of like the mind's way of, it's a fake heart place, okay? It's its fake version of what you can find all the time, consistently, unconditionally. No conditions need to be met. It's what you can find always in the heart space. But the mind has a counterfeit for everything, and hope is that counterfeit. And so what happens is, when you're in fear and worry and you're scared and you're worried about this and you're worried about that, and your mind grabs hold of a positive hope, it's almost like this cloud is kind of floating around in your tidy mind and you hop up on it. So you're kind of hopped up on hope, okay? So you're not feeling shaky floor anymore. You're feeling emotionally calm, you're feeling better, and you might even mistake this for being out in the safety ground of heart space, because your emotions have calmed. They feel still. But it's not true, because if you were to hop down off of the hope, then there would be the emotion all over again. You're still basing this on a condition. And if the hope falls through, there you are again, like shaky floor is just there. So whether you're standing on shaky floor in worry and fear, or you're hopped up on the hope cloud, both are unsafe, unstable places to be, that the end result can be a lot of emotional suffering. The place that I'm trying to get you to, I want you to see all of these little tactics of the mind. I want you to see what it does to keep you living in your head, keep you living in your mind space, thinking that your mind is going to figure everything out for you, that your mind is going to give you all the answers, and that your mind knows best. And trust me, it doesn't. It does not know best. The only answers, the true answers that you can get, exist out there in your heart space. That's where the truth, that's where true guidance, that's where your true path is, that's where everything is that is permanent, is lasting, and is not based, there's not all of this emotional up and down. It's even, it's emotional stability. You're not basing your emotional state on whether something happens or doesn't happen, on any outcome, on any condition. You're just it. You are at peace with what is, whether your mind says this is good or your mind says this is bad. You're at peace with what is. So I really want you to just give that some thought and sit with that. And I want you to ask yourself, if you find yourself like right here where I'm talking about right now, and you have some kind of future worry, and you've managed to get yourself into a calmer state of mind by attaching to some future hope, I want you to ask yourself, if you're feeling good right now and you think you're in the heart space, I want you to ask yourself, if that hope falls through, if whatever that outcome is that you're banking on doesn't happen for whatever reason, are you still going to be emotionally stable? Or is it going to devastate you? What I want you to get is that if I can help you see this, we can avoid those times of devastation, of complete disappointment. Because when you go down into that, when you go into that deep, dark place, every fear that you still have in your mental space is going to attack you. You're going to be attacked in that moment. So not only are you just shocked and devastated at this outcome because you were hopped up on hope, not only are you feeling that, now you've been plunged into the depths with this DJ judge and these records shouting at you about all of your deepest, darkest fears. And if that happens, you know what? That's okay too, because if you listen to the audio called something like devastated, defeated, confused, like listen to that one. It's an opportunity to flood that space, flood that darkness with the light of unconditional love and unconditional acceptance of yourself as is, and realize that everything that's being shouted at you from that space is a lie that you believed a long time ago. So that's what I'm talking about. I've talked about this in previous recordings, that hope is a phantom. Hope is just as hollow as fear. Both are made up. Both that deep dark fear and that hope is a phantom of the mind, a creation of the mind to keep you held prisoner in a space that cannot produce joy. Joy cannot arise when you are living in that space of the mind. It can't. Happiness can. Happiness, excitement. But you know what? As soon as the condition is gone for that happiness, or maybe even like you get y'all have all gotten something that you really, really wanted for a really long time. You've gotten it. And yep, you were happy, but how long did it last? Like happiness is very temporary, and then you need more. Now I need something else, and now I feel bad again. Okay, well I got to get something else now to make me feel better, so it never ends. Inside the space of the mind, you will always be on a quest for happiness, because when you reach some point and get something that you think is going to bring you happiness, you'll enjoy it for maybe a day, maybe. And then your mind is on to the next quest, because happiness is fake. Like happiness is a made up emotion by the mind. Joy is a real thing. Joy is not based off of any condition whatsoever. And joy arises from being able to stay in that space of unconditional acceptance of everything that is in your life, allowing it to be what it is, being content with what is, not fighting what is, being surrendered and allowing what is, accepting what is. There's so many spiritual teachings on this, and there's so many books. Love what is. Like everybody's saying the same thing, and that's what they're talking about. It exists in a place that is outside of the mind, in a place that I call it the heart space. It's just the best label that I can give it, but it exists out there in a world of no conditions need to be met. You're not looking for happiness. You're not trying to meet all the conditions your mind says that you must meet in order to have happiness. You're not struggling, you're not trying, you're not striving, you're not goal setting, you're not you're not, there's no force, there's no let's make it happen. There's none of that. You are completely present and immersed in what is, and because you're not living in the mind, you're not labeling it as good or bad. And when you don't label things as good or bad, there's no emotion of, oh my God, of fear or of hope, because it's not good or bad. It's just what's happening. I have things I have to deal with now, and it's just the world we live in, but there's no judgment of it. There's no label given to it. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's just is. And your emotional body, your emotions stay in a stable place. And the longer you can hold that space, the longer you can stay out of being dragged into the mind and judging everything that's happening as good or bad, the longer you can stay out there, the more and more still your emotional body becomes. And in that stillness, this little bitty spark down at the very, very, very bottom of your emotional body, if you look at it like a lake, The waters have to be still, and they have to be still consistently before that little spark just starts to climb. It just starts to rise up more and more through the waters, and then it gets brighter, and then it gets brighter, and then it reaches a point where it actually comes in contact with your physical body, and you can feel it. You feel something that is, it's not happiness, but your mind will want to label it happiness. It's not happiness, the only word I can give it is just joy, because it's coming from such a deep place, and nothing is happening that your mind is saying, oh yay, I got this now, or I got that now, or now I'm my ideal weight, or now I'm making my ideal salary, or now I have the house that I want, or now I have the car that I want, or now none of that's happening. You could be homeless, there's no conditions being met. The only thing that has happened that is different is that you've come out of that space of that conditional mind, and you're sitting in a place that nothing's being labeled as good or bad, and you're just observing it, and you're dealing with what comes up. There's no stress, there's no emotional upset, there's no drama. It's just what is. There's no insanity, there's no mind yelling, do this, do that, and forcing and pushing and struggling and worrying. You're just out there, and joy starts to come up. Not only joy comes up, but I guess I see it in a visual way, joy comes up from the bottom and answers come down from the top. So you're getting guidance and ideas and inspiration, and your health starts to change, and because you're not doing all those behaviors clean themselves up, because you're not numbing the pain of living in a mental space. When we live in the mental space, there's a lot of pain in there. So of course we're going to have a lot of behaviors that are coping behaviors that are usually negative, because the mind gives us the idea of what to do to make ourselves feel better, because it's torturing us. So when you're not there, you're not being tortured anymore. No emotional pain is created, and you're just out there. There's nothing to numb. So all of that emotional eating stops, the drug addiction stops, the sexual addiction stops, whatever it is that you're using to feel better, you're already better. Like you don't feel bad. You wouldn't even label it as good or bad. You just are. And all of those behaviors take care of themselves from living in that place. And you realize this, and then you realize you're not eating as much. You're just, when your body's hungry, you go grab something, and it's usually something healthy, because you're not craving all the sugars anymore. You're wanting to get out, and you're feeling inspired to go ride a bicycle, to go climb a mountain, to go hiking. Now your body's talking to you and saying, I want to move. I feel good. I want to go do something. Now you can hear your body and its urges. So everything falls back into its natural order when you can move out of this mind space. Our goal is with Tidy Mind is to tidy it up so you can see what's going on. But I don't want you to live there. I don't want you to just tidy it up and be like, okay, well, this is here and this is here. I can manage this now. I don't want you managing this house. I want you to move out. I want you to move out of the space and only use it for what it was intended to be used for, and that is creating things and problem solving, like not emotional problems, but just how you're going to do this and how you're going to do that. Like, that's what it was intended to do until this DJ Judge, this egoic mind, kind of took over and made it very, very sick. So I don't want you to just tidy it up. We're moving, okay? We're going to tidy first, and we're moving out. We're moving out into a space where joy can emerge.